Today I'm going to share with you 5 tips of how you can encourage wildlife into your garden. Now, they're really simple, they're very easy, don't require a huge budget, and anybody can do it, no matter if your garden is that big or that small. I'm often asked the question, well, can I really make a difference? And the point is yes, that what you're going to be doing to encourage sustainable, good gardening practices, plus to encourage all that beauty, in other words, the wildlife, into our garden, each little bit that we do can help. The first one is very practical, and that is trees. So many gardens, especially when you move into a new property that's been newly developed, you lack trees. Now, trees not only add to the beautiful structure of our garden, in other words, give us that depth and that feeling of space and dimension, but most importantly, they are a resting place for our feathered friends. Remember, always pop into the guys at Builders because they'll be able to give you the right advice on what tree to plant in terms of the scale and proportion of your property. Not only the trees are important, but together with that is to introduce water, because they both go hand in hand. The birds come along, rest in the trees, and if the water is near the trees, be it a water bowl, be it a bird bath, that is the safe intermediate space before they then go down into the water. So make sure you top it up, keep your water bowls clean, and especially during the drier months if you do not receive rain. The second tip to encourage wildlife into your garden is what we call diversified planting. Now, what does that mean? Well, there are 2 aspects to this. Number 1, guys, is try and make sure that when you do go shopping, you don't buy everything in flower. Because when planting them, we don't want everything in your garden in flower at the same time. So we want a smorgasbord for the birds, the bees, and the butterflies in the garden. So if you visit your local Builders maybe 3-4 times a year, then make sure that when you are there, you pop into the gardening section and get another plant that is in flower. In that way, you are then going to make sure that there's something in flower all the time in your garden. Little plants like this, lower plants, which is the statice, also known as Limonium parisii, is an absolute heaven and haven for bees and butterflies. But you'll notice that's got much smaller flowers, more compact. And that's important to understand when looking at plants that you want to encourage wildlife. Like these salvias, they've got a long flower, so that's of course where the sunbirds would come, pop their long beak in and sip away at it. So it's about having that combination. Also think about larger flat flowers. So that would be your daisies, your osteospermums, because those open big flat flowers with the yellow centers encourage loads of butterflies. And finally, never ever forget to keep grasses in your garden. With grasses, when they plume, of course they don't only look beautiful in our garden and add wonderful texture, but the seed is what the birds are going to come along for. The third tip is as follows. We all end up with bits of logs that we've cut or we've pruned, and when we're shaping things, and instead of simply just throwing them away, use them in the garden. They create not only gorgeous features like these logs that I put here a good few years ago, stacked them, and nature's just taken its course. There's some lovely moss that started growing right on this log here, and not only that, but we can see that there's beautiful insect activity that's taking place, and that's what we want. The other way of encouraging wildlife is to use stones, be it a piece of slate or just a few stones stacked on top of each other in a hot sunny spot, because that's where you find the little skinks and the lizards will go and make their homes and hide underneath there and wait, not only from the protection of the cold, but also when they look for a bit of coolness, and it's like their own little man cave for lizards. So the fourth way is incorporating one of the first tips that we spoke about, which is not only about planting pollinator-friendly plants, but it's about linking this all together. And the way that you do that is by encouraging self-seeding. impact. So when you've got a packet of seed or when you've got a plant and the seed does form, allow it just to fall. And you'll find that the next generation takes care of itself. And in that way, we're actually completing the cycle and encouraging more biodiversity into the garden. It's planting in no specific order, quite haphazard. So it's a combination of grasses, of salvias, of aloes, of cniphofias, of aloes, and encouraging that community of plants to start creating their own personality. And that is where we really find when nature kicks in. And if you've got a small garden and you can't really do this, or you're feeling that you're a bit restricted, you can do this simply in a square meter. And another way of encouraging this is even to let a small patch of your lawn just grow. Just let it grow. And you'll be amazed that very soon the little birds will come down there when it is busy flowering and the seed is set, and they'll be picking away at it. And all of a sudden, the boundary between us and nature has been joined together. And our fifth and probably most important tip on how to encourage wildlife into your garden is what I like to call responsible gardening. It's a lifestyle decision. It's a choice that you need to make. And wherever possible, I encourage you to use organic alternatives. From that, I'm talking from the compost, to having your own compost heap, to having your worm farm, to using organic pesticides, and preferably biological options where you can treat pests and diseases in your garden. By encompassing this, by using the biologicals, and encompassing those 4 other points that we spoke about, you too can have a healthy, safe, friendly, and especially wildlife-friendly garden. Never think for 1 minute that what you do does not make a difference. It always makes a difference. And that is how we change things. And that is how our mindset and our actions can have a huge impact on the environment around us. So I encourage you to implement these 5 tips to really start making a difference. Remember that your organic solutions, composts and fertilizers are available at your local builders, either in-store or online. Remember also to visit the blog where there are more great articles to encourage you to become a more responsible gardener and also to get your teeth into a few DIYs. Get to Builders and get it done.